Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman. Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host Linz.
And I'm your other host Chris.
We're actually in the same room.
We are. A different room than usual.
Yeah, it's a new room. We have an actual table, but we're together.
We are.
We're not online.
Woo!
Woo! How have you been, Chris?
Yeah, pretty good. Just been researching lots and lots and lots of weird shit. Coming your way soon.
Yeah, same. In the field as well. We'll get to that later, but yeah, before we go any further, I have a small gift for you.
Ah.
It only came in this colour.
Oh God. Let's find out what this is. For fuck's sake. So, for anybody who is not currently in the room, which is none of you, I have got a small yellow dolphin, made in China, plastic with a floppy tail.
Yeah.
Which is going to now sit atop my laptop.
Yep, that's just something to... Maybe you can put it on your office at work and think about me. I don't know where you want to put it, but...
I mean, to be honest, when I see that after the stories that we've been telling about dolphins, I probably won't be thinking about you, Linz. There's other things that will come to it. Yeah, Anna Kournikova. Oh.
If you don't get these references, listen to our LSD and Love Dolphins episode.
And then followed up with our summer Q&A episode where Anna Kournikova comes into things.
Yeah, Chris reads some dolphin erotica, and yes, that is a real thing, and it's definitely out there.
Well, thank you very much for my my present. I also have a present for you, medium-sized. So close your eyes.
Okay, I'm scared. Can I open?
There you go.
Oh my God! Is it from the Pokemon Center?
All the way from Pokemon Center in Japan.
ASMR. Oh my gosh, it's so cute! He's running! That's the cutest Eevee I've ever seen. That is so cute, thank you.
You're very welcome. It was insanely busy because it was the first day of the summer holidays when I went there. And I had to queue for about 30-something minutes to buy.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Did you, raid the store? Did you buy anything?
I did. I bought my son. I decided he needed to start a Pokemon.
Oh, thank God.
So I got him a Squirtle.
Oh, I saw that on your stories. And I was going to say, nice starter Pokemon. Yeah. That's always my starter Pokemon.
I don't mean to be like a Pokenazi, but if you didn't fucking choose Squirtle, get the fuck out.
Oh my God, this is the cutest Eevee ever.
You're very welcome. can sit next to you while you tell me this tale today.
Okay, if you want to follow along with any visuals, you can do so at
d.s.radio on Instagram.
And if you want to become a member of our Patreon and give us a little bit of support,
you can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio.
So, Chris, I'm just going to get right into it.
Okay.
I'm going to start off with a bit of history.
Okay. I like history.
I'm going to go into something a little bit different, let's say. Emanuel Swedenborg was a Swedish 16th century scientist, philosopher, and mystic. And in 1758, Swedenborg wrote a book titled Heaven and Its Wonders and Hell from Things Heard and Seen.
Hold on, go back to his description for a second. He was a philosopher, a
scientist
and a mystic. That sounds like the thing that he moonlighted on the side. He's like, I mean, really, I'm a mystic, but my day job is philosopher.
Yeah, well, you might not be too far off there, Chris. So heaven and hell, as it was known in the English language, described what Swedenborg believed to be the afterlife in great detail. Swedenborg believed that there was only one supreme being or God, so he had a monotheistic view of the afterlife. He was a pluralistic Christian theologian. Pluralistic as in he believed in different religious belief systems and that they should coexist in society. And theologian as in he studied both the nature of the divine as well as religious texts and teachings. How he came to these beliefs is something we're going to explore today in today's episode of Dystopian Simulation Radio. Now, I could go on for the whole episode about the interesting life of Emanuel Swedenborg and the prominent philosophers, poets, and writers that he both inspired and impressed along the way. But as this is a brief history of spiritualism, I'm going to try my very best to keep it as short and to the point as I possibly can, Chris.
Good, because that was way too many concepts for this time on a Saturday afternoon.
Now that that's out of the way, we can get on to the interesting part.
I'm glad there's no quiz.
The part that only we would care about.
Okay.
The mystic part.
Yes.
So Swedenborg made early scientific discoveries way ahead of his time. He was an inventor, he was an impressive man, and he was well liked by those who met him, who often described him as friendly, polite, and humble. But his interest took a shift in the Easter of 1744, when he was in his early 50s, and he started having religiously themed visions, dreams, and revelations.
Ooh, so, like seeing like demons and angels and speaking to God?
Yeah, pretty much nail on the head. So while Swedenborg was in London, in 1745, eating at a private tavern, he began having strange visions of snakes and frogs occupying the space. Suddenly, darkness fell over his eyes, and the vision of a man manifested before him and said,
"Don't eat too much."
I really wish somebody would manifest in front of me and say that. I am munching my way through these fucking biscuits.
Slaps the biscuit out of your hand. Swedenborg was jarred by this experience, even more so when the same man appeared to him again later that night at his home in Salisbury Court while he dreamed. Here, the man introduced himself as, any guesses, Chris?
David Lynch?
Jesus Christ himself.
Of course he did.
Why Jesus Christ himself manifested in a London pub to scold a tubby Swedish man remains a mystery.
That sounds like a Jesus move, though. I'm not going to lie.
So Jesus told Swedenborg that he had been chosen to bring the true meaning of the scriptures to the world, and that to aid him in his mission, he would be given, Chris?
A small book of the flora and fauna of the United Kingdom.
Unrestricted all hours access to the afterlife, baby.
What's an afterlife, baby?
The afterlife.
Oh, no. Oh, right. Sorry.
Comma, baby.
I was like, the afterlife, baby? What is
You don't know the afterlife, baby. From this point onwards, Swedenborg became something of a mystic, claiming he was able to travel to both heaven and hell to converse with spirits and angels and demons that would aid him in writing Heaven and Hell, his book on the afterlife, as well as other books, journals, and letters on the subject, and he wrote a lot. He said that there wasn't just one heaven or one hell, but several, and that all angels were once earth-dwelling people who lived much like those on earth, but in their own realm. They live in houses, they go about their daily life, but they're angels. That's the afterlife. So we could die and then we'd be angels, well, depending on how we acted in life. But
right. So it would basically be like exactly the situation now, but there'd be no buses because we could fly everywhere.
He seemed to say that it was like a reflection of Earth, but angels have missions to help people.
Okay. So it's like a mirror.
Kind of, yeah. So it's not like hellfire or clouds. There's different layers of it, you know. So Swedenborg believed that spirits were messengers going back and forth between God, or the afterlife, and humans. Swedenborg didn't encourage people to try to communicate with the dead or to try and reach out to them, but inadvertently, this is exactly what he inspired people in the future to do. Because of Swedenborg's claimed ability to talk to spirits and connect with the afterlife, he is considered one of the first figures of spiritualism, which is what today's episode will be focusing on, Chris.
So spiritualism, is spiritualism a way of life, or is it when you have an ability to...
It's a religion.
Right.
A modern religion where people believe that those who die are still with us and that you can communicate with them. But we'll get more into that later.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, I know certain religions... I know Shinto, for example, considers everything is imbued with spirits. So you don't know whose spirits are in what, so you should take care of everything around you. But it doesn't necessarily say that you are going to be communicating directly with them. So I'm interested to find out the differences when it comes to spiritualism.
Well, in spiritualism, you can communicate directly with spirits.
That's handy.
Yeah. Now, Emanuel Swedenborg did make some interesting predictions in his life. As a quick example, he predicted the exact date of his own death, 29th of March, 1772 in London, England.
Oh, interesting. You wouldn't, I mean, if it was me, if I predicted that and the place, I'd try and not be in that place on that day.
No, we just knew that he'd die on that day, no matter where he was.
I mean, I suppose if he's so confident that he'll be going to heaven or still be here in the spiritualist sense, I suppose it's not really... It's just the passing of a corporeal body. It's not your death, so to speak.
But he did die on the date that he said he would, which makes people think, ooh, he was in the know. So subscribers of spiritualism believe that when one dies, their soul or consciousness continues. They also believe generally that it's possible for the living to communicate with the dead.
And how do the living do this?
So spiritualism was at its biggest between the mid-1800s to the early 1920s. In 1897, it had approximately 8 million followers.
Wow.
Spread out across America and Europe. It grew in popularity in a less conventional way than other religions do. So instead of being spread by the way of a holy book, or camps, or people knocking on your door, or indoctrination, it became popular through traveling mediums doing tours to show their skills of communicating with the dead through various methods like seances, table rapping, and the like.
Okay, right. So I've got an image now. So this was a religion that was largely spread through the carnival circuit. So is that...
No, not the carnival circuit. The followers of spiritualism were mostly like middle class or upper class people. Many of them were women. And they actually pushed for women's rights to vote and the abolition of slavery and, in a few cases, vegetarianism. And this was just people who got word of traveling mediums.
Okay, so...
And would show up and want to see these skills.
Right, so they were traveling by themselves, not as a part of another traveling attraction.
No, they were just on tour. Like, people would hear of this, and then they'd do a show here and a show there, and soon everybody wanted to see it, so they ended up touring with
so it's
their
less
abilities.
Of like somebody wearing a sparkly turban and sitting outside a fun fair, and more Derek Acora doing a show.
Yeah, but people were a lot more convinced. Like, Derek Acora, you can laugh at it, but back then people were seeing, spirit rappings and these seances, and they were actually part of it. They really believed, to a point where it actually became detrimental. So, Chris, off the dome, can you think of any famous spiritualists or mediums of the 1800s?
Oh, of the 1800s? I'm just going to go, yeah, Derek Acora. I'm assuming that she's been around for that long, so Mystic Meg?
No.
No?
What happened to Mystic Meg?
Doesn't she like still write like an
Oh,
article?
yeah, she's in the newspaper somewhere.
I haven't read a newspaper.
Me too,
since
but
like
that's
1993. But
Yeah, that's the last place I remember being.
she used to do the. For anybody who's not in the UK, the Mystic Meg was a pseudo psychic who would appear on the national lottery and, without fail, every week would not give you the answer to which balls were going to be drawn out of the lottery.
That is so weird, thinking about it, that there was a psychic before the lottery, and it wasn't even that long ago.
No, and it was basically like a horoscope. She was just sitting there saying, Saturn will plunge into Uranus, so lube up.
But Chris,
yes.
Have you heard of the Fox sisters?
No, I haven't. I thought you said something else there, and I was like, well, yes. But no.
What did you think I said?
Nothing.
Well, although there was already players like Swedenborg in the game, the Fox sisters, specifically Kate and Margaret Fox, were said to be the gals who started it all on March 31st, 1848.
And where were they from?
They were from New York.
Okay.
So Leah, who was the oldest of the sisters, was born in late 1813. Margareta, or Margaret/Maggie, was born in the fall of 1833. And Catherine, or Kate, was born in the spring of 1837, so Leah was the oldest by 2 decades, while Maggie and Kate were closer in age with only a few years between them. So in 1848, when Kate was just 11 years old, and Maggie 14, strange noises, tapping and scraping, started happening in their Hydesville, New York family home. The house had always had a spooky vibe and was purported to be haunted, but it was only in March of 1848 that it seemed to come alive. 11-year-old Kate called out into the home, asking for whatever spirit that was making the noise to mimic her. She clicked her fingers several times, and the same sequence of clicks came back to her. They began communicating with the alleged spirit in this way, asking it various questions that it could answer in numbers, for example. It could correctly tap out the age of each of the girls, and when asked a question, it could communicate back by using once for yes, twice for no, and eventually it could tap out words by spelling letters of the alphabet. Word got around the local area, and soon enough people were coming over to the house to see their spirit communication with their own eyes.
Are you about to tell me that it was just a mongoose that was in the walls doing all of this?
Try to explain Jeff the Mongoose in 2 sentences.
So Jeff the Mongoose was supposedly a anthropomorphic personification of a demon ghost that befriended a girl who was living in a remote Scottish island, and she communicated with it and then took the story nationwide. And there's a lot of debate on if it actually existed or not, but I'll leave that for the episode. That might have been 3 sentences.
He's in the walls, Chris. So naturally the family became curious about the ghost or spirit and started to ask it questions. They discovered that the ghost was that of a murdered man named Charles B. Rosner, who had been buried in the basement of the home half a decade earlier. Kate and Maggie were sent away from the home. Kate went to her sister and Maggie went to their brother. But it would seem the spooky happenings were not isolated to the Fox family home, because where the girls went, the scratching, scraping, and knocking continued. The Fox family were Methodist, however, they had 2 close family friends who were Quakers, and the girls were sent off to stay with them. Word of their supposed abilities to communicate with the dead spread within the Quaker community, and this is where the early link between spiritualism and radical political issues is thought to have been born. By late 1849, Kate and Maggie were demonstrating their abilities and were at the centre of paid public seances. They basically became celebrities. But the pressure of their sudden rise to fame at such a young age, coupled with having to perform in front of audiences, came with a lot of anxiety, and the sisters leaned on alcohol to get them through it. So at first, the questions asked by the audience members at seances were generally related to love and money. But after a while, the nature of the seances became more religious or spiritual. In 1851, there were various investigations into the Fox sisters' mediumship abilities that determined the rapping noises were produced by... Any guesses, Chris?
I'm going to guess, was there a small device under the table, something like a bit connected to their feet?
Well, this was one of the guesses at the time, but it turned out these noises were made by the cracking of their toe joints against hardwood floors. Several investigators from the University of Buffalo did a controlled experiment wherein the rapping noises could not be produced when the sisters sat with pillows under their feet.
Ah.
Multiple investigators came to the same conclusion over the years, that the knocking came from the cracking of joints. Which, can I say, how loudly can you crack your joints for it to be heard in a really big hall at a well-attended seance?
And, no.
Yes, I had one in me.
Fucking shit.
It must have been really freaking loud.
I mean, it's when you crack your knuckles or your toe knuckles, like it's air popping, isn't it? That's what it is.
I think so.
It's displacing air and it's popping out, I believe. So I mean, there's those what are they called? Those shrimp?
Mantis shrimp.
I'm not sure. No. The shrimp that live like in the ocean, like quite far down.
Those shrimp.
As opposed to the ones that live like on land,
Shrimps.
ocean.
Why didn't you say?
Yeah. Well, land shrimp are. Right, it pops a little air bubble, right, and it creates a sound and a velocity that is the equivalent of a bullet firing, and that's how it kills its prey.
The Fox sisters applied to take part in an event set up by the Boston Globe in 1987. The event would award a whole $500 to any person who could convincingly, without a doubt, show their paranormal powers. The judges of this event were Harvard professors who, again, came to the conclusion that the sisters produced the rapping sounds by clicking their joints and bones. There is so much more to the Fox sisters story that it could be an episode in itself, like their personal life, honestly. And we probably will cover it in more detail in the future. But on October 21st, 1888, Margaret publicly admitted to a crowd of 2,000 people at the New York Academy of Music that she and her sister Kate, who was with her at the time, had faked their mediumship abilities.
I don't believe it.
They demonstrated their freaky toe-clicking abilities, which were verified to be the source of the rappings by doctors who confirmed it to be the case. Apparently, this toe cracking is something that has to be practiced rigorously through childhood into adulthood, and it's something most of us can't naturally do.
I better stop a boy now.
Margaret also added that it was the audience who helped the whole spectacle along by essentially, in their excitement, being wrapped up in the idea that spirits were present. They would begin to feel the sensation of ghostly hands squeezing their shoulders or touching their arm, for example. So people were so hyped, they just helped it along.
Creating a sort of mass hysteria in the room.
Yeah, they wanted to believe, Chris.
Yeah, when people go somewhere for a reason, they're far more likely to experience that thing. If you go somewhere with the express intention of hunting ghosts, you're more likely to see a ghost. Now, I have friends who are ghost hunters, so that's no slight
Excuse me?
on them, but it's something psychological. If you go fishing and you've heard tale that there's a great big fish out there, every fish that you pull out, you're going to think maybe it's old Betty.
Maybe this is the golden magicarp.
Exactly.
So Margaret also admitted that when she and Kate were kids at the very beginning of their mediumship career, that they had essentially just tried to creep out their mother by tying apples to string, pulling them back and letting go so the apple would thump into the wall across the room.
So this only ever happened when at least one of the children were out of the room?
No, it happened wherever they went. You mean to their mother?
Yeah, well,
they just messed with their mother. Like, for example, I don't know how their living arrangements were, but they would tie an apple to a string and in the darkness swing it back and let go. So their voices were coming from one side of the room, but there was a bang across the other side of the room. So they're just freaking out their poor mother in their haunted house.
And when she switched the light on and there was like broken apples everywhere, she didn't ask any questions.
Well, I guess they just retrieved it, before maybe they were in bed and she's like going, oh, I'm so scared. And when you're scared, you might, the first thing you want to do is turn a light on, but it's the 1800s, so I guess you'd have to light a candle.
Yeah.
So it's a big, it was easier to do the old switcheroo back then, I guess. They would also produce these rapping noises and call out in the darkness to Mr. Splitfoot, as they called him. Isn't that a really scary fucking name?
That is. Yeah.
Apparently it's old slang for the devil, you know, like a goat with split hooves.
Oh.
Mr. Splitfoot. Ooh, I don't even like saying it out loud. It's so creepy.
I think if you say it one more time, you'll appear behind you.
Soon the adults around them were so convinced of the paranormal presence and the ability of the girls that their older sister Leah decided she would capitalize off of it. A year after they admitted it was all a hoax, Margaret attempted to return to mediumship and took back her statement that the sisters' abilities were nothing more than a ruse. But she was rejected by the spiritualist movement, who had lost faith and their interest in the Fox sisters in general. It's unclear why Margaret wanted to recant her confession, but it's speculated it was due to poverty or the pressure of her previous marriage to a Catholic husband who shunned spiritualism. 4 years before her death, Kate told the newspaper, "I regard spiritualism as one of the greatest curses that the world has ever known."
So these girls inadvertently started a movement, but they weren't involved in the actual creation of it. Was it their followers who created the movement?
There was always people who thought they could do this, but they were the ones that kind of went on tour with it.
But what I mean is they're just going on tour. They're taking this show on the road to try and make a quick buck. Their goal isn't to make a religion.
No, they probably just, the cash was probably good. Although it was really stressful for them because they had to drink. I think their sister kind of said, come on, let's make some money from this ability. Because I don't think she believed in it at the start, but she kept pushing it because she knew that it would get attention, make money. And then they get passed along to the Quakers who start going, ooh, this is fun. And then they're suddenly on tour with it. And they were very young. 11 and 14 when they started doing it. It's, just pranking their mum, and then it grows into this.
Yeah, and their sister's quite a few years older than them, probably quite easy to manipulate the
Exactly,
older sisters.
she was a lot older.
Yeah.
So both Margaret and Kate died penniless. Now, there were hundreds of self-proclaimed mediums, many who claimed to be legitimate, like Emma Hardren's Britton, who seemed to be the icon of modern spiritualism, William Staden Moses, who communicated with the dead through automatic writing, the Bangs sisters, who painted portraits of the dead.
Sure.
Mina Crandon, who produced ectoplasm, which turned out to be animal guts when examined. And the list goes on and on and on. There was all types of people claiming they could communicate with the dead. Do you know that those people who produced ectoplasm, some of them were hiding it in their, cavities?
Well, I mean, sometimes...
You hide
Sometimes you have to hide things in your prison wallet. Sometimes there's no other option. Now, can I can I just say? Have you heard the story? This is a slight a complete deviation, a fatal deviation. Have you heard the story of a chess grandmaster was beaten by a very low seed recently, which is very unusual? And there's the idea that that person may have beaten this grandmaster through using vibrating anal beads.
What?
Vibrating anal beads.
How does that help you win?
Essentially, there'd be inside these anal beads, there would be a sort of Raspberry Pi computer with all of the chess moves inside, and through your clenches, you'd be able to tell
skip left and right.
Skipping left and right, be able to tell which movement to be made, and the bead would vibrate back a certain code that would tell you what moves to make.
That's almost modern day mediumship.
So that's what I mean, though. Sometimes you got to use your prison wallet.
It's more useful than we think.
Exactly.
Okay.
How do you use yours? Answers on a postcard.
So, Chris, there were also those who could produce mediumship abilities but never claimed to be mediums, such as, the Davenport brothers, who were basically 19th century magicians who created illusions that the audience perceived to be supernatural. Now, they did play on this, but they were basically magicians. Houdini would go on to show how these mediumship tricks were performed to expose the mediums of the time. But again, that's another story for another episode, and people just didn't want to know. A lot of them just thought that he was a medium.
I mean, when it boils down to it, the presuming that both are illusions for a moment, the only difference between a spiritualist performer and a magician is one is claiming that it is spiritual and the other is just claiming that it is magic.
Yes.
Now, what's the difference between those? I don't know. I just work here.
And it's kind of like what Darren Brown does today.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, the skill in anything is trying to get somebody to believe in what you're saying, whether that's magic, whether that's religion. You've got to get someone to believe in what you're doing, and that's through a variety of different methods. And I mean, Darren Brown's done some really insane things, like where he's convinced people there's been a zombie apocalypse and the whole world has gone. And they're really interesting sort of psychological studies to look at. But at no point has he ever claimed to be spiritualist.
Yeah, the opposite, actually. He tells everyone that it's all bullshit and he can show you how it's done.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah, he's more of a
mind bender. Chris Angel, mind freak.
Good hell. I haven't thought about Chris Angel for...
He's in Vegas now doing shows.
Of course he is.
So, Chris, what does spiritualism look like today?
According to the BBC, Spiritualist National Union, the first united organisation of spiritualist churches in the UK, was the Spiritualist National Federation, founded in 1890. The organisation was succeeded in 1902 by the Spiritualist National Union, incorporated in 1901. The Spiritualist National Union now has 350 affiliated spiritualist churches or centres of almost 16,000 full members and over 2,000 associate members. Local churches, which are run by elected committees, have considerable freedom to arrange their own activities, as long as they remain within the organisation's rules and accept the 7 principles.
The Spiritualist National Union website is a hub for all things spiritualist, including access to online courses as well as residential courses at the Arthur Findlay College, the world's foremost college for the advancement of spiritualism and psychic sciences. That's right, you can go to an actual spiritualism college with an actual building. Do you want to see, Chris?
Sure, let's take a look.
So, Chris, this is the website, and if you could just have a scroll around, maybe look at the courses, compare the fees for online and in residence, and give the listeners an idea of what it's about.
Okay, sure. So I'm on courses here, and so the residential ones, you can do things like the language of spirit, psychic explanation, stuff on shamanism, mediumship, soul food, French. They also seem to do a lot of languages as well. Finnish, Italian. We've got the way of the medium, the power and presence of entrancement, demonstrating and presentation. The swinging 60s inspired Christmas. So there seems to be quite a variety of things that they do offer in person. Let's take a look at the online ones. The Soul of the Rainbow. Let's have a look at this. The cost of online is £66 per person. Not too bad. And it is a 4-hour course.
Yeah, maybe some like residential courses on like mediumship and stuff like that.
Yeah, a mediumship course on in person, slightly more than £66. It is £679, which I'm just going to ballpark is about $800.
Crazy.
Woo! I mean, you must really want to be a medium.
Well, modern spiritualists believe that everybody can be a medium. You just got to tap in and develop those skills. So you could take this course, Chris, stay at that spiritualist college there and come out a
Where is this
bona fide medium.
Essex. Mm-hmm. That is exactly where I'd expect it to be based, in Essex. Well, maybe. Let me see how much time I have on my hands. I might have to do an online one, potentially.
Yeah. So, Chris...
Ooh, there's a bar and a shop. Sorry.
So, Chris...
Yes.
Reading and researching this topic simply wasn't enough for me. I wanted to experience a night or 3 of mediumship. So I found the nearest spiritualist church that I could attend once a week or for an entire month,
Okay.
which is exactly what I did.
So that was interesting. And I don't know how to feel about that. I didn't expect to say the Lord's Prayer. I went in there and they were really welcoming. This lady introduced herself. She was a medium and she was there to display her powers, and it was kind of odd because I was thinking, like, if I had passed through the veil and I was on the other side and I was present in the room and I wanted to relay a message to a family member, I would say something important. I would be like, I don't know. But with these like spirits that were supposedly coming through, this medium would say something like, I'm seeing like pain in this area of the body, and then she would like move her hand from basically the chin to the stomach, which is a larger area. And you know, she'd say things like, oh, towards the end they were struggling to breathe, towards the end they'd lost weight, towards the end they couldn't really eat, towards the end this and that. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what happens when you die. Things shut down, your body shuts down, you stop eating, you lose weight, depending on how you die, of course, but if you die of, you know, you get to an old age, you generally die of something in that area. All your vital organs are in the abdomen and the chest. So, yeah, I mean, it's bound to be one of them. But, yeah, so there was that. And the thing is, like, it was quite general. It was like, oh, there's a man or a woman, and I can't tell the age, they're old, but I don't know exactly how old. It's hard to judge how old, you know, like, throwing out names like, you know, sort of Christian names like James, like, not, it wouldn't be like James or something, it would be like Jim, you know, like, I almost put my hand up at Jim. It's close to a nickname that my granddad had, but I didn't I could have, and I wonder if I did, if she would have just rolled with me instead of the woman that she eventually went to. But she did do a couple of kind of weird guesses. Like, she said to one girl, like, that jumper that you're wearing tonight, you weren't going to wear it, were you? You were going to wear a blue one. And she said, yeah. And I was like, what? Like, that's very specific. And there was a guy in front of me, like, shaking his head in, like, disbelief, like, wow. And there was one that I thought was really specific. Like, she said, oh, this older gentleman, and he used to do a trick with money, didn't he? He used to do tricks with coins. And I was thinking, wow, that's really specific. But also, like, it's kind of an old people thing. Like, I think my granddad, both of them, used to do some trick like that. So it's kind of like the colour of the jumper thing was that was like, ooh, interesting. But then, yeah, all the other stuff, I don't know. Weird experience. I'm back to my place now, so I'm gonna shut up for a bit.
In what you're describing there, apart from the more specific stuff, is a bit more interesting, but I always think of it as like psychic battleships.
Exactly.
Like, you know, when you play that game and you're like, D7.
Yeah.
Safe. Like, you're like, is there... I'm hearing a man's voice, and his name began with the letter J, or it may have been a G, or an I. Oh yeah. I'm getting one name's beginning with I.
Ingrid.
I'm getting a. That's not a man's name.
Oh, you've chosen the worst letter. Ian.
Oh, is it an Ian? Is it an Ian? Your window cleaner was called Ian. Like, I don't want to pour water on it like that, but that's the kind of, you know, you see psychics on shows that do exactly that sort of thing, where it's just, you've got a large audience of people, they're all there because they want to see spiritualism of some sort, whether it's religious or just psychic powers. And you used to see like Derek Acora doing it all the time, you know, and he would sort of narrow it down to something narrow it down to something very broad.
Yeah.
Like, especially people who want to believe will take the ball and roll with it. All you've got to do is put the ball in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, the demographic of the people there, can you guess?
And you said there was a guy there, and you also said there was a woman there. Was it a sort of roughly 50-50 split? Or was it... if I was going to guess it was more weighted one way, I'd probably say there would be more females.
Yeah, there was more older white women with a spattering of men. And some younger women, actually. I went there to scope it out. It was my first time. I did actually email one of the members when I was in Sweden because I was planning to do this and I wanted a bit more info. So they kind of knew I was, maybe I was going to show up, maybe I wasn't. So I just went up to scope it out. I was looking around, see who goes there, what goes down. So I went back a second time.
Okay.
And this one had a different vibe,
Was it a different person hosting?
It was a different medium.
Right.
So she was a lot more friendly, a lot more cheerful. They do these little, speeches before the mediumship where they just basically say, essentially she said, oh, you should smile at people, be nice to people. There was nothing, scary. No, you're going to go to hell if you don't do this. They're just kind of like...
It's a bit like a sermon, or at least I know sermons in the Protestant church where, it's sort of be nice to people around you, do your best to do this, don't covet thy neighbour's ass, things like that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first medium that I saw, she was mostly describing people's illnesses and ailments before they passed. So she'd go I've got John through here. He's got a terribly bad leg. He's limping. Now, if I came to give family member a message, I wouldn't be going, oh, my kidneys were screwed.
Yeah.
I'd be going, oh, the afterlife, it's insane. You should see it. Don't worry, it's not scary.
Well, that's what I'd hope, that you wouldn't die and still be afflicted by whatever ailment you'd had.
Or be going on and on about it after you've passed over. You're going, oh, my leg was terribly painful and when I was alive. Why are you coming back to complain?
John, are you still moaning about this?
Yeah, you're fine now, John. Just give us some intel.
I don't think I'm coming back here. If all you're going to talk about is your bloody leg, John.
So the second medium that I saw, she would actually act as if she was talking to the ghost. She'd go, sorry? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So she was purporting that she was directly speaking to the departed.
Well, they all do, but she was actually interacting with them. She would turn to the side and chat,
Because I know a lot of mediums, pop mediums. I'm going to refer back to Derek Acora here, who I probably should have defined who he is a lot earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, he was a very popular medium who was on a lot of television shows like Most Haunted. A group of people would go off to a castle somewhere, stay the night, record the activities, and then Derek Acora would walk around and go, oh, yes, this happened here, and I can speak to this guy. But my question is that he had what he called a spirit guide.
Yes.
So he would never speak directly to the ghosts. He would get it through his spirit guide, Sam. So they didn't have a Sam. They just spoke directly to the departed.
The last lady that I saw spoke directly to them, but a lot of mediums do have spirit guides. It is a thing in spiritualism and modern spiritualism too. I got an interaction. This lady chose people in the audience to interact with. The first one would say, put your hand up if this pertains to you. This lady, she would seek you out in the crowd and talk directly to you. So you have in front of you a script of how that conversation went.
Can I come to the lovely lady with that lovely white hair and the lovely big eyes? Yeah. Can I come and speak to you, sweetheart?
Yes.
I don't know who I have at the moment, but I'm being drawn to your energy. Do you understand?
Yes.
As I've been drawn to your energy, I'm feeling sadness around you. I'm almost feeling heartbroken. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a gentleman stepping forward here. I feel as though this gentleman and yourself have been very close. He feels grandfatherly I'm getting images of yourself and him walking to the park and things like that. Do you understand that information?
Yes.
Yes, because it's bringing memories of my childhood with my grandfather, and I know that. That's relevant to yourself, okay? I want to say that your grandfather has been around and about you lately, and he's just putting his hand on your shoulder. I don't know if you felt a pressure on your shoulder right now. Yes, that's just your grandfather standing behind you, and he's putting his hand on your shoulder, and he's wanting to know, but he's here for you, pet. Okay? I'm not going to open it up because it's very personal to yourself, okay? But I can just say to you, as one door shuts, another door opens. Would you understand it that way?
Yes.
He says, know your worth. Yes?
Yes.
And he's saying, Hawaii, pet. Put that little smile on your face. Okay? Because you used to laugh and giggle together.
Yes.
Yes. He was always telling you jokes and doing that trick, that sort of thing, going, can you do this? Things like that. He's just bringing that laughter through for yourself there, all right? Have you been thinking of putting pink streaks in your hair?
No.
Because I'm looking at your hair and I can see pink streaks in it. All right, I don't know what that is. Oh, right, okay. He's surrounding you with the pink. It's your hair. It looks pink to me, and that means love and affection, and coming through very strong, and it's coming through around you. And you talk to your granddad.
Yes.
And he's saying, I'm here. I've heard what you've said. He's calmed you down, should I say, in situations where you could have blown your stack. Yeah, he was a calming influence on your life when he was on Earth. He was like your rock. And you smelled what he was cooking.
Chris!
He was like your rock, and he says that he's still your rock now. And he's showing me a bottle of wine, and he's going like this. Glug, glug, glug. And there's someone around you and about you that's drinking too much, shall I say.
I don't know.
Someone within your circle. I've got a bottle of wine, and it's saying, "Well, hey, party!" Your hands are freezing cold. Because my hands are usually quite warm, and they're absolutely frozen now. We're not going to have a horrible winter, are we? He says, put some gloves on in winter, all right? There's someone in your family who used to have a white finger. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's like when they've been using machinery, you know, like a pneumatic drill or something like that, and their finger goes white. Can you remember anyone who had a white finger?
No.
Looking at the right hand index thing, the lady behind you.
And at that point, the woman behind me said, I can take that. So, Chris, that was my very first interaction with a medium.
I see. Well, it seems like from your answers, you're saying that a lot of this wasn't true.
It was not true. No. I felt very happy that day. My grandpa was not my rock. He did not calm me down when I was about to blow my stack. Have you ever seen me get violently angry?
No, I haven't. It's not a trait that I would associate with you,
exactly.
Really. But, you know, sometimes when you are surprised, so think about like a confrontation.
Yeah.
If like your parent to you or something at work or somewhere where someone's just like, this, and this, and you just like, you're kind of like a rabbit in the headlights and you just agree to it because you're not processing the information at the time. And especially when there's an audience of people around you, you feel the need to not go against the grain.
Do you know what? I felt a pressure to perform. Like, I felt like I was part of the show. And it's really weird psychologically because for some reason, I didn't want to disappoint the people by just going, no. I mean, I did start saying no. At the beginning, I was like, yes, because I was like so stoked that I was having an interaction. And I was like, this is great for the podcast. And she had like picked me out, you know, I hadn't claimed something. And at that point, I just started saying yes, because I was like, even when it wasn't completely true, because I just wanted to skip to the next part.
Yeah.
I'd go, yeah.
Part of me as well, like in the nicest way possible, you do stand out from a crowd because you do have so blonde, it's almost white hair.
Yeah.
And, if you're in an audience and it's mainly people with, black hair or sort of grey hair, your hair would stand out. And as well, if you're a new member of the audience, I'm going to guess it's the same sort of people going every week.
Actually, some of the mediums had only been there once or twice or something. Apparently, there's so many of them that they can actually rotate them at that kind of rate.
Oh, wow. Well, regardless, I do think that if you were standing out on a pulpit, you would probably stand out as well. I'm going to guess you're in black.
That's another thing I was going to say. She said, I'm getting an aura of sadness and heartbreak. And it's I know I have dark eye makeup. I know I do look kind of sad when I'm just resting,
Resting sad face.
Yeah, exactly. And I wear black. And I think it's a misconception that, okay, I am clinically depressed. But I mean, generally, I'm an upbeat person. I like cute stuff. I'm not completely heartbroken and sad.
No, you just dress like...
Not even a total goth. I
no,
just
you don't,
wear black.
Yeah, no, and...
I like it.
No,
I always have. And I suppose you could assume that I'm a sad person because you associate it with gothic people and...
I mean, all of the statements that you said, though, are very general. I mean, I think anybody, just with the everyday pressures of life and everything else, you could probably make a general statement I see sadness is surrounding you. And you could think, how does that apply to me? And you could think, well, I've had a death in the family, or I'm not happy in this situation, or, I wanted to get that promotion at work, but damn that Smithers he got in front of me, or whatever. You can always, when you make a general statement.
Yeah.
I mean.
But that does not hit for me. Sad, heartbroken, and the white finger thing. She was like, someone in your family has white finger. Do you know what that is? And I was like, it's so mean, but I really wanted to burst out laughing.
That's where it gets more interesting, because that's something really specific. Mm-hmm. So everything else is really general. But to be that specific, and that's not something that led on from what she was saying. Mm-hmm. It's just something that she just pulled out of nowhere.
And she did pull a few things out of nowhere that people agreed to. But after I got my reading, I thought, are they agreeing like I am because they feel pressured? Because there was one woman and she said, there's a small white West Highland Terrier running up and down the aisle and is jumping up on you. And that one woman said, no, I don't know that. And then later she went to a woman who was sitting across from her, but on the other side of the hall, which is a 2-foot gap, And she said, that dog's sitting on your lap now. And she went, yeah, I know this dog. And I was like, okay. And another one, she said, okay, this was really specific. And I was like, what? You cannot just be agreeing to this. So she said to them, I can see 2 men here, Edward and George, and they used to breed parakeets. And she went, yeah. And I'm like, come on. If that is true and you've not posted that on social media and you don't know each other and you're not just saying yes, that's insane. It's too specific. But I was thinking, I started saying yes to any shit.
True. I mean,
I drew the line at pink hair and wine and all that stuff because I'm like, no, that's just... But Chris, remember earlier when I told you to?
Remember the wine bottle, yeah. And the sitting on the mantelpiece, there is a wine bottle, although it's also a very small one held by a taxidermied white mouse.
And that came a day after the mediumship session. So I was like, there is someone drinking too much. This taxidermy mouse who is inanimate. But if you were a believer and you wanted to attribute meaning to these meaningless things.
Well, that's where you get that, give me a sign.
Exactly.
And a sign could be anything if you're not specific about it. I think I come into this sort of thing with a hefty amount of skepticism. It's not that I don't want to believe in it, but for some reason, there's something in my personality where I would probably, if there was 2 stories in front of me, one of the spiritualists who'd spoken to the dead and the other of an alien abduction, I'd probably be like, no, the alien abduction, that's the one. I'm putting my money on.
What a surprise.
Yeah. So, but that's the, I guess, different ways of approaching things. And I mean, it'd be interesting to try it and just bullshit at somebody and just be like, oh, I'm getting a message from beyond, and just see what you could do. But if you start off with very general statements, you get down there. My only thinking logically about this pneumatic drill white finger, she's talking about a grandfatherly figure, so somebody of a certain age, and based on the town that it was in, we saw a working class town, lots of people having manual jobs, it wouldn't be out of the question that somebody could have used equipment in the past. But that's a very specific, weird thing. I've never heard of white finger, but then again, I don't work with power tools.
No, but one thing I noticed was the medium before and the second medium, they both mentioned a grandfatherly figure doing coin tricks. Like, of course they were doing that kind of shit. There was nothing else to do in the 90s to entertain a kid. They both used that, though, and I was like, is there like a go-to? Is there like a little script you work from? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this something you're taught early on?
I suppose they might make the argument that, no, the same people were there and it's the same spirit turning up again. But, I mean, it sounds very specific, but like you're right, it is quite general. I mean, if I was like, I'm getting a grandfatherly figure and he's reaching into his pocket and he's getting a Werther's original. Does that mean anything to anybody?
Yeah, you could say he loved hard sweets, didn't he?
Yeah.
Chris.
Yes.
Before we wrap this episode up, I have another little gift for you.
Okay.
Hold your horses. Okay. So now knowing what you know, having completed this episode, I'd like to offer you this.
This is an invitation to a Spiritualist National Union's event. The father.
Oh no, not an event, Chris.
Not an event.
Would you like to join a new religion?
Hold on, let me just read these T's and C's. I declare that I'm not presently serving a prison sentence. I'm not a registered sex offender. Is it a church associate member is blank pounds? How much does it cost to become?
I don't know. I assumed they meant donation by leaving it blank.
Oh. You know what? No. I don't.
Why not?
I think I've probably declared quite publicly my skepticism on mediums. And I don't think they'd have me.
Well, I am going tomorrow for a night of mediumship with a male medium.
Oh.
So Patreon exclusive little phone call chatty episode coming up, Chris.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see how this goes.
Yeah.
See if it's different. Maybe a male medium will tap into something different.
Mm-hmm. But I will definitely call you to tell you about it, and we will definitely hit record and hopefully upload that on Patreon sometime soon.
Awesome. Well, let's do it.
That shouldn't be
a
there.
fortune-telling pack of magic fish.
That shouldn't be in there.
Are you sure they didn't give you this as well? And then,
Chris, now that you've stumbled upon the fortune-telling magic fish, would you like to do one before we close out the episode?
So what are magic fish?
What?
For the people listening at home.
They're little red plastic fishies that curl up at the head or the tail. So if you could read the back of the pack here, Chris.
Okay. So fortune teller fish. Place fish in the palm of the hand and its movement will indicate a moving head means jealousy. Moving tail means indifference. Moving both means in love. Curling sides means fickle. Turns over means false. Motionless means dead one. And curls up entirely means passionate. And these were made in Taiwan.
Let's give it a go. Is there just one in there?
It's just one fish.
Oh, and I got one too. So let's see if we're jealous, indifferent, in love, fickle, or false. So you put the little fish here.
Place the fish in the palm of the hands. The movements will indicate your fortune. Keep fish in envelope when not in use.
Oh. What have I got? Moving head, moving tail. I think I've got moving head and moving tail. But I've also got curling sides.
Yeah, I've got moving head and curling sides. So, jealousy and fickle. Wow.
I've got in love and fickle.
Mm.
Oh God, mine's really going for it. Well, there you go, Chris. There's a souvenir from the episode. You can take that to your wife and... Oh, you've got curling sides, I would say.
No, I've just got curling sides.
So what are you? You're fickle.
Fickle. You're fickle.
You're fickle, Chris. But yeah, there's a gift for you. Chris is really staring at this. Have you never seen one before?
No, I've never seen one of these before.
Ooh, well.
I guess it's working
welcome.
off the heat of the palm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I shall place the
Nice
magic,
and retro.
the magic fish alongside my erotic fish.
But yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for joining me in person
Yes,
for
on
this long-awaited episode.
this different sort of episode today, where we've been talking about an actual real-life encounter that you've had.
Yeah, well, I had to know. I had to know and I had to experience it, and I'm glad I did, because psychologically, you will say yes to freaking anything if you feel like you are part of the show. That's what I've learned. I was like, yes.
Right, well, thank you very much. For anybody who would like to see the images that will go along with this episode, you can, of course, go to our Instagram page, which you can go to by searching Instagram for @d.s.radio. You'll find it right there. If you're not following us already, why not give us a follow? And if you want to hear some of that exclusive Patreon content that's going to be coming your way very soon, we do promise, head over to patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. The exclusive content is available on the higher tier, FYI.
Thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time in the Dystopian Simulation.
Bye.
Bye.